The Black Ice Chronicles Massive. This is Crazy D. Don't forget the first episode of the Black Ice Chronicles 6th season, entitled Track, is running now on youtube.com/2007. Subscribe, watch, like, share. Also, the second episode debuts on November 21st. It is entitled Meet Mamba Banks. We'll talk about that later, closer to time for it to show. Also, we have the interview, more of the interview with Mo P coming up. It's just jam-packed, finishing out 2016. Also, we have the interview with Ben from So Delicious Seasoning. So you want to stay tuned for that. That's going to be happening beginning in December. So, what do I want to speak on today? What I want to speak on today is how lazy are white folks. You know, the media calls it the flyover states. And most of us black people call it parts of states that are still inbred confederate. Yeah. These whites who voted for Donald Trump say that they feel like they're flyover states, that both parties have ignored them and turned their back on them, and this is why they wanted to shock the system with the vote that they did. So 57% of white women voted for Trump. We talked about that yesterday. And 63 to 67% of the total white population, percentage-wise, voted for Trump. And they say that they feel like they were left out, that no one was speaking for them, or no one had any ideas for them. And that is not true. You know, I've spoken about how President Obama did things for the pride community. He actually did something for women who 57% of them voted for Trump. He actually did work on fair pay for fair days work, whatever that shit was called. And then, of course, he worked on DACA and the Dreamers. And none of them seemed to appreciate it. But however, he did not leave out the male white population or the uneducated female white population. Neither one of those populations did he leave out. The factories were shutting down. He saved General Motors. Now you have to get at General Motors to talk about why they still closed down some factories after he bailed them out. Okay, that we could bookmark that right there. I'm never coming back to that because, you know, that doesn't come before me. But so we're never gonna come back. We're gonna bookmark that right there though. But he said at the beginning of his presidency, he said the economy and the workplace and the business apparatus was changing, and that people would have to upgrade what they knew. That they would have to get at least 2 years in a 2-year college, get a associate's degree, to then be able to go on to higher education to be able to finish up, if that's what you chose. But that 2-year degree will get you in the door places. He said, get the 2-year degree. So it's been nearly 8 years, and how many people actually took advantage of him making it cheaper to go to college? Now, listen to how stupid this is, and how lazy whites are. Look at this. Lazy thinking, and thus making them lazy. He says he's going to make college more affordable, which he did. He also worked on being able to get people's debts not forgiven, but their monthly payments lowered for the college loans that they had. All right, he worked on that. Let me bring the exposure down a little bit because the sun is finally coming out. Get that 2 years of education. He's going to make it cheaper to go to school during the time that he was in office, and he made it so people could refinance their debt to get a lower monthly payment. What more can a person do for everyone? He didn't do much for black people other than watch us die in the streets and come up and be a symbol, but he did do things for all Americans, because he was not the president for just one group of people, but for all Americans. Okay, but I'm not fighting his battle. That's besides here or there. We're talking about how white people are lazy. If factory jobs were to come back, if they were to open up factories, they would be looking for people who knew about repairing robots, knew about operating robots, knew about working a factory from a technical end, not from the labor side, but from the technical end. That's what they would be looking for. Exactly what they would be looking for. Not for people who would still be doing labor, putting the parts together, because machines put the parts together. So there would be still limited jobs if factory jobs come back. And the only jobs that would probably be available would be maintenance. And even then, you know how people have the little vacuum cleaners that go around and clean up, the little robot vacuum cleaners to clean up. They probably have that shit now. And all they would need is someone to be able to be a tech to watch it and to make sure it doesn't malfunction. So jobs will still be limited in the factory jobs that come back, because everything is now automated and it's robot driven, which meant that your 2-year degree would have helped you get in. They would have trained you on those fucking robots, but you got to have something, some kind of technical certificate or some kind of 2-year degree, associate's degree. That's what Obama was saying to you. And how many people took advantage of that 2 years getting that? And then, listen, Bernie Sanders had negotiated with Hillary Clinton to make it possible for 2-year college to be totally free. But no, the lazy whites don't want to have to go back to school, go back to college and learn something and upgrade themselves so they could be in the 21st century and be able to have their kids and their offsprings and their grandkids and their great-grandkids be ready for the 22nd century. They didn't want that. They wanted to still think about it's 1950 and they just started creating an assembly line for cars where people are putting the parts together. That's bullshit. That's old. That's played out. Now, how I know this is true, that white folks, they're just plain old lazy, and thus they voted for Trump, because they're lazy. There's a representative on the Democrat side that's running to be head of the DNC. His last name is Ryan. Not Paul Ryan, who is the leader of the House. Not Paul Ryan, who is a Republican, but it's another Ryan. And he was on the media yesterday on all the channels, and he was talking. And just in passing, he says, just in passing, as he's talking about, they asked him about the flyover states and how both parties have let them down, and how the Democrats in particular have to rebuild. And he says, just off the cuff as he's talking about it, and they don't want to have to retrain to work. Talking about the lazy whites. I said, they don't want to have to retrain to work. If you go to a factory, you're going to have to train. You're going to have to retrain because it's not the same job. If you're 50-some years old, 57, and they're talking about moving the retirement age up to 67, you only got 10 years left, but you're out of a job and you have to go into a new factory. Those factories are not going to be the same as the factory that you worked in, so you have to go retrain motherfucker anyway. So the lazy whites are sitting up there saying that both parties let them down and they want to do a shock on the system. But President Obama had a plan for you. He cared for you. He cared for his white side more than he cared for his black side. All of the things that he did, it would have trickled down to black folks. Black folks would have got would have got a chance to do it, and a lot of us did. But it was mostly for you. And you did not want to listen. And that is how white people are so lazy. They just didn't want to take those 2 years to train to better themselves. The 57% of women, the 63 to 67% of whites total who voted for Donald Trump. And now what have you set yourself up for? Well, let's see. The media is reporting that they let Christie go because he prosecuted Trump's son-in-law's father and made it a very embarrassing situation where he went out of his way to embarrass the guy. As far as the guy accepted sexual favors, you go watch that shit. That doesn't have anything to do with me. I don't give a fuck. But what it does do, all you dummies that voted for him, Christie had it all set up. It was going to be smooth sailing as a district attorney. He was in the government before. His signature was on the transition papers. Now it's been 4 days, and now they have to go with someone else. Now they're going with Mike Pence, right? Guess who they are bringing into the Trump organization? All of the people that he was supposed to be draining the swamp of are coming back into his cabinet because he doesn't know what he's doing. They have to get the 4,000 positions filled to run the White House. So they're going and putting in people who are the same as the people who you said ignored you. I don't know if it's because President Obama was manifest on the planet as a black man, or it's because white folks have a psychosis. They live under that white code, and at first they wanted to go along with what he said, but then they remembered that he doesn't look like them and that he is the fear that they have always had about the population change. And really, not me to give white folks advice, but all you had to do, they were in fear of a black planet, but now it seems like because they're letting the Asians come over, the Asians and the Mexicans are going to be the larger population, and the blacks were going to be turned into the larger population, but hey, not now. They've been killing us up, putting us in prison, la-di-da, dee-dee-da, dee-dee-da. So now you're going to deal with the Mexicans. So what you should have done was made yourself invaluable to the Mexicans, because all the Mexicans aren't educated, so they would have needed whites to still do the transition. Like how Obama's helping Trump, but no, you didn't want to do that. Now, as far as the women are concerned, voting for Trump and him possibly taking away the Roe versus Wade, the reason why they say that the gay situation is locked in stone, that it's law, but the Roe versus Wade situation is not locked in stone, is because they need you to be the vessels that bring white people into the world. They want you to still be barefoot and pregnant, no rights, because the population of white folks is dropping in the country. So that's what this has always been about. The reason why they won't say that Roe versus Wade is law and have women be able to advance and not necessarily have children is they need the white population to go back up, or it's going to be a majority population, meaning that dark-skinned people are the majority around the world, so thus it will be a majority country of black people, just to cut to the chase. So everything that's happening is putting you under the 8 ball, 57% of white women, and 63 to 67% of the whole white population as a whole did not listen to President Obama about getting 2 years of education. Paul Ryan, the Republican leader, House leader, is going to push legislation through that cuts educational programs so that they can give that fucking tax cut. So that's how white folks are so lazy. It was lazy thought process at the beginning of President Obama's term in 2009, and it was lazy thought process going through changing over the Senate and the House over to Republican control under President Obama, and now it's lazy thought process electing Donald Trump, who told you, basically he told you what you wanted to hear, but it's not going to be possible for all of the different reasons that I just laid out earlier. Go back and watch. So you set yourself up for failure. Thank you. This is the last big outcry for white supremacy, racism, bigotry, prejudice, and it may work towards bringing about eugenics, but remember, we are going to go to the ovens, but so are you. So stay tuned, stay aware, stay awake. The Black Ice Chronicles.